We're moments away from seeing what the 2022 route is. Before we do that, though, a voice you'll know well, one of the commentators on the Epic, and somebody with not just a great understanding of the race, but also the route, how it is produced, and what goes into making it. Neil Gardiner, lovely to have you with us. Give us some background on how the route is chosen and how we decide each year where the Epic is going to go.
Well, Dan, thanks first of all for welcoming me. I have indeed a bit of an intimate connection with the race because we do what we call the trial ride every year, and the trial ride is a dress rehearsal of the route, normally about 6 months or so beforehand, and we ride pretty much as wherever we can, almost every meter of the course. And I'm always struck by the science. It's a real science getting the route right. And of course, the idea behind the science is that every rider in every year should get the same experience, a difficult experience, hard experience, the arduousness of the race. And it would be a terrible thing for somebody to say to another person, well, you had the easy year. And that's certainly never the case. There's no such thing as an easy year. But the aim is to make it to make the difficulty level equally challenging, and it's very much up to the route designers to make that consistency in the experience. And it's a particularly difficult thing to do because the route does change every year, but the stats change every year, more or less within a certain realm. And the route designers take great pains to make sure that there is the same experience with actually sometimes vastly different areas, vastly different terrains, different elevations. And this is indeed a big challenge. And I think from my side, we watch the racing and we commentate on the racing. And for the races, the fact that the route changes every year is really an important thing. And also for the amateurs, for the dedicated amateurs, it makes it a bit like a vintage. Dan, you know a little bit about wine, and you'll know that each vintage is special. And it's a bit like that with the Absa Cape Epic and the route changing every year.
Well, each vintage is indeed different, and somehow each year of the Epic remains different. You'd think the Western Cape's big. It's not that big. How on earth do we keep finding new places to go? And yet we do, although it's quite familiar, Neil, in terms of the broader areas. There is some new space, some new territory to explore in 2022.
Indeed, and the landowners go to a lot of trouble as well, and many of them are passionate mountain bikers. And we've seen hand-cut trails literally for the Absa Cape Epic before in the past. And this coming year is no exception. It's lovingly created, and when we ride those hand-cut trails, it's quite remarkable how much work goes into every meter of it. And there's almost a bit of a guilt thing when it comes to riding the Absa Cape Epic and riding the routes and those hand-cut trails, because we know full well that every meter, as I said, is difficult to cut, difficult to create. And there is a certain science just to making single track with the amount of elevation per meter. It's not just randomly carving a route through the Western Cape, as you said. Everything has to be carefully considered. The corners are carefully considered. The berms are considered. And if we draw the contrast between previous years, even back to 2007, we had a lot of flat roads, a lot of open roads. And I think more and more there's a higher and higher concentration of single track, and as we said, very much of it is hand cut by some of the landowners.
Well, we're almost ready to have a look at this route, and gee, it looks like a good one. Before we do though, Neil, without giving too much away, what's exciting you about 2022? What are the challenges? What's going to make this one particularly tough?
Well, I don't want to give too much away, steal the thunder from the guys, but I think it's hard to say really without giving too much away. But certainly from the experience that I've had, it's more of the same, but it's different. So you'll get the same challenge, but with something special, a special twist to what's to come. So anyone who hasn't done the race before will be surprised, and even the veterans, even the riders who've done 10, 12, perhaps more, even the last lines, they'll certainly take this coming year as a special year and remember it well.